When people think about the history of the United States, they often picture major events, timelines, and turning points. But some of the most lasting ideas in American history did not begin with dramatic moments. They began quietly. One such idea is public access to information. Today, public libraries exist in almost every part of the United States. They store books, documents, and records that preserve knowledge across generations. However, this system probably did not always exist. Historical records suggest that the concept of a publicly accessible library developed gradually, shaped by local needs rather than national planning. In this video, we explore what is widely regarded as the first public lending library in the United States, how it began, how it functioned, and why it mattered. In the 17th and early 18th centuries, books were not common household items, printing methods were limited, paper was costly, and distribution was slow. As a result, most households owned very few books, if any. Written material was typically found in specific locations such as educational institutions, private collections, or organizational archives. Historical sources indicate that early American communities relied heavily on shared reading when access was available. However, this access was often restricted. Many early libraries operated on a subscription basis. In these systems, individuals paid fees to gain borrowing privileges. This model meant that information was shared, but not universally accessible. At this stage, the idea of a library funded and maintained entirely for public use had not yet fully developed. Before formal public libraries existed, towns sometimes maintained small collections of books. These collections were often kept in meeting spaces, storage rooms, or multi-purpose buildings. According to historical records, these early collections served practical purposes. They included materials related to history, science, navigation, agriculture, and reference works. However, ownership of these books was often unclear. Some belonged to institutions, others to private donors. What made these collections important was not their size, but their role as a transition. They represented an early shift away from private ownership towards shared access. Over time, this shift would help shape a more organized system. The Franklin Public Library, located in Franklin, Massachusetts, is generally regarded as the first public lending library in the United States. Historical documentation traces its start to 1786 when Benjamin Franklin donated a collection of books to the town, though it was officially voted free to the public in 1790. Unlike subscription libraries, this collection was a gift to the general public, donated by Benjamin Franklin. According to town records, the collection was owned by the town itself. This meant that residents had access without direct payment at the point of use. While other shared collections existed at the time, historians often distinguish the Franklin Public Library because of its structure, funding method, and long-term operation. It represented a clear step toward the modern concept of a public library. Instead of beginning with a large building or extensive collection, the library developed gradually. Historical accounts show the collection began with 116 specific volumes chosen by Franklin himself, which focused on sense, meaning, logic, and education rather than sound. Books were acquired slowly, with a focus on durability and educational value. Early materials reportedly included historical texts, scientific references, practical manuals, literary works considered important for learning. What made this library model significant was not size or architecture, but structure. Key characteristics included public ownership, community funding, open access policies. Historical analysis suggests that this approach probably removed financial barriers that existed in subscription models. It also established the idea that information could be considered a shared public resource rather than a private asset. Over time, this concept would influence similar efforts in other towns. While Franklin established the first lending model, it would be another 40 years before the town of Peterborough, New Hampshire, established the first library funded entirely by public taxation in 1833. During the 19th century, records show a steady increase in town-supported libraries across the United States. This expansion did not happen uniformly. Some regions adopted the model earlier than others. By the mid to late 1800s, public libraries were becoming more common in urban areas, cataloging systems began to standardize, and collections expanded in size and scope. While exact numbers vary by source, historical surveys indicate that public libraries had become a recognizable institution by the end of the century. Today, the United States has thousands of public libraries operating under similar principles. Although services have evolved, the foundational idea remains unchanged: shared access to recorded knowledge. The Franklin Public Library is often referenced as an early example of how this idea took physical form. The first public library in the United States did not begin as a grand project. It began as a practical response to a community need. Historical evidence suggests that its success came from simplicity, shared ownership, gradual growth, and open access.